I'm not just on my phone. I'm doing what you should be doing. Called sharing. Feel it, get it. Who gets all excited about the theme music? I know I do, and I have shared. I hope you have as well. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Leadership Live 2022 with Dr. Renita, and typically friends, but this month we haven't had friends. It's just been me, but it's been great. And I'm so excited about it, especially because we're dealing with topics this month that people typically don't talk about or don't want to talk about. And I think that we need to talk about other things. And so we're going to talk about it. But for those of you all who are like, lady, it's wonderful that you're talking about things, but what and who are you? One, thank you so much for joining me here on Leadership Live. Leadership Live is a sharing of journeys. And back in 2019, I did this by myself for a year, for 52 weeks. I came on by myself and I talked about 52 stories and stories of leadership and lessons learned. It was quite amazing. I enjoyed myself a lot. But then 2020, a whole pandemic, a pan-seared salmon, a panorama, a panna cotta, whatever you call it, hit. And so things, life was rearranging. We were doing different things and that was fine. But at the end of the year, God tapped me on my shoulder and said, Renita, I need you to do it again. And I said, God, hold up. Who am I going to do this with? Because I have nothing. And God said, I'm going to give you the people. Just say yes. And so I gave God my yes. And so for 49 weeks, I had 54 guests. It was amazing. And here in 2022, I am back. And every month we have a different topic. Every month we have a different topic. In January, we talked about finances. In February, we talked about parental and relational leadership, and parental and marital leadership. And then in March, we talked about all things public relations and branding. And here we are in April talking about leading in difference. And last week, we talked about dealing with disabilities. We did. Oh, but who am I? I'm Dr. Renita. I'm an educational leadership strategist, and that just means I love to work with growing and aspiring leaders to become more authentic in their leadership, empower their fellowship, and at the end of the day, have a greater impact on the world. I am also the founder of the Refining Life, a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide you with experiences to shift your mindset so that you can lead a more positive and productive life. I'm also the authoress of Stepmom, Trials, Tribulations, and Triumphs, as well as While You're Sleeping, The Perfect Children of All Ages book. I'm a wife, a mother of 4. I'm a scholar. I'm an educator. I've worked with grades kindergarten through college. I am excited. I'm a mentor. I'm a coach. Coaching, growing, and aspiring leaders is something that gives my heart more joy than I can ever explain. And I am the editor-in-chief of Lead Like You magazine. Lead Like You magazine. We have 3 issues out thus far. Volume 1, 3 issues, and issue 4 is coming out soon. So be also ready. A wonderful magazine. If you've not checked it out, head over to leadlikeyoumag.com and check it out. You can get the digital formats or you can order print copies. It's something like amazing. But Leadership Live is something that I cherish. I love doing this on Monday nights with you, and I love talking about the things. And so tonight we're talking about leading in difference, running with race. Running with race. I know. I already know I'm about to dig the hole, but it's okay, and I don't care. So race is a huge elephant in many rooms. It's a huge elephant in many rooms. There are so many people who don't want to talk about it. There are so many people who don't want to deal with it. And so many people who use this excuse. And let me tell you, let today be your last day doing it. If you do it, don't do it anymore after today. You ready? I don't see race. You don't what? I don't see race, girl. I don't see race. How not? Maybe, just maybe, literally you are colorblind and you don't see colors, but guess what? You still see hues. Please don't tell me you don't see race. Please do not tell me you don't understand. And look, I'm in an extended office, so I'm having to do things I don't normally have to do. But please don't tell me you don't see race. Don't tell me that. Because what you are telling me when you tell me that you don't see race is that you don't see me. You don't see me. Now, okay, so let's take this back a little bit. Race. Race is a social construct. Fight me if you want to, but that's what it is. Race is a social construct, like somebody made it up. Like, so there's race and there's color and there's culture. There's race, there's color, and then there's culture. So race. I'm going to read you the definition. For those of you all who do not know, my undergraduate degree was in English. I was an English major. So words mean a ton to me. Y'all pray for my husband because he can use the wrong word and he is in trouble for like 2 weeks because words have power to me and words mean a lot. So don't use the wrong one. But race is defined as each of the major groupings into which humankind is considered in various theories or contexts to be divided on the basis of physical characteristics or shared ancestry. Race was created to divvy people up, to make it so that there were groups. Last I checked, we were all human. Yes, we have different experiences, but race was constructed to make sure you understand that these are these people and these are those people. Unfortunately, it was also constructed to say that these people here get certain things, these people here do not. These people over here have to suffer through things that these people over here do not, because we separated them so you know how to treat people where they are. And it worked. It worked. It worked. It's still working. It worked. But that's race. Color. Literally, color. You see this nice melanation? It's color. You see it? It's color. It is. And I am proud and I enjoyed mine. Thank you for the melanation, good Lord. I appreciate my color. I do. For a time, though, I didn't think it was pretty. I was disgusted with the shade of my color. I won't say disgusted, but I was disheartened by the shade of my color. I thought less of myself because of the shade of my color for a period of time in my life. I am grateful for this time where we are re-embracing everything that we are. Not just color, but just everything that we are, our natural hair, our body shapes, our color, our lips, our everything, our physical attributes, what we've been blessed with. We're being taught now to embrace it, but that was not always the truth. That was not always the story. And so I went through a time where this chocolatiness was an issue to me because even I fell into the thought that chocolatiness was less than, but not anymore. She's been revived. She's been re-educated. Her mind has been revived. It's been refined. I have new thoughts about it. I love this shade. I love me. But it was a thing. And so color is the thing that, is the amount of melanation in our skin. Our pigment is color. And then there's our culture. Our culture is, pretty much how we live life, do life. But it is actually defined as the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. It's the culture. Like, we have regional culture. People of certain racial groups sometimes have the same culture. Sometimes have the same culture. It's not always. There are a lot of things that people in different racial groups go through or experiences because of their racial group, because once again, it's the social construct that was, made to pocket people. So people with the same race, a lot of times falls into the color line, sometimes fall into the same cultural group, but not always, because culture is not race. Culture is not color. Culture really is experience and the way you choose to continue to experience life. There are 3 different things. So let's be very clear not to get that twisted. So as leaders, we need to understand the difference between race, color, and culture so that we can move the way we need to move. So we can deal in the way that we need to deal. Does it matter? Yes. Does it matter? Yes. Because of culture because of the way these pockets have been set up that has reestablished or established experience in life. As leaders, we need to understand that different people have different experiences. Different people have different experiences. And guess what? Their experience is real and it is valid and it shouldn't be thought less of. And it shouldn't be told, well, oh, that's okay. We don't do that here. Well, it doesn't matter. It's a part of their story. Their experience is a part of their story. It's a part of who they are. So let's not discount their story, their experience, because as leaders, it is a part of us bringing them in. It is a part of us understanding how to speak to people. It's a part of us understanding what happens when we give people certain tasks. It's what we need to understand. And when we are empowering and motivating people, we need to understand their experience. We need to understand their cultural background. We need to understand where they're coming from. But a lot of times we make assumptions based on color and or race that certain people have certain experiences. And it's just not true. People who come from different socioeconomic statuses, people who come from different states, different regions, different countries may have completely different experiences. But sometimes when they get into your space, they end up having the same experience because of what you have set up. Sometimes when they get in your space, they end up having the same experiences because of what you set up. Let us all have this moments where we check ourselves about how we interact with the different people of different races and colors. We don't always know culture, but the things that we can see, how do we even interact with them on our own? So there's a thing called code switching. And the African American community, particularly, we talk about code switching. And we talk about the way we have to change the way our speech. We have to sometimes hide our culture. Sometimes because we can't hide our color. We can't hide our color. So we code switch in order to find new ways to fit in to the cultures of where we are or what we assume to be or to make ourselves palatable. Because sometimes our color scares people. Sometimes our color scares people. And I won't say it scares people who have different color than us. It just scares people, period. Sometimes because of the culture that some people that even look like us assume that other people who look like us have, or we experience, or that we exude. Sometimes even people who look like you will be afraid of you or not want to deal with you. But you got to run with race. You got to understand it. So this goes back to the idea that race is a social construct meant to pocket us. And it did its job. Like, it's for real. So there is an author. His name is Eduardo Bonilla Silva. Absolutely phenomenal author. Wrote a book called Racism Without Racist. It's a whole book. It's a whole thing. I read it in a class. And I remember the day I started reading it, I was so intrigued by it. This is a gentleman that does not look like me, who has a different experience, but his experience made sense to me. And it spoke to me and my experience. But something that he put into that book was this hierarchy of races in our country. So I think we were specifically talking about the United States, which is a very unique place. We're this melting pot of all of these different people and cultures, and we're all here together, but our interactions with each other over the history of the time that really has been recorded and or studied in our country massively has been very unique. And definitely not all positive. But he talks about this hierarchy. So this hierarchy has to do with the kind of the privilege hierarchy in our country, and it starts with whites. So now the whites is a group, not just a piece of the race, but it's a group of people. And the whites have the most privileges according to his hierarchy. And it goes whites, and then it says new whites, which include Russians and Albanians, and then assimilated white Latinos, and then some multiracials, and then assimilated urban Native Americans, and a few Asian origin people. That was the white group, and the white group has the most privilege. And in the order that I listed, he says that's how the privilege goes. And then there's honorary whites, the honorary whites group, and it's light-skinned Latinos, Japanese Americans, Korean Americans, Asian Indians, Chinese Americans, Middle Eastern Americans, and most multiracials fall into this group of honorary whites. They are the second group of privilege. Going in that order, they are the next most privileged, and then the collective black. The collective black, lowest on the totem pole, and in this order. According to Bonilla Silva, I didn't make this up. This is not my hierarchy. This is his, but here we go. The collective black group goes Vietnamese Americans, Filipino Americans, Hmong Americans, Laotian Americans, dark-skinned Latinos, blacks, new West Indian immigrants, African immigrants, and then reservation-bound Native Americans are the collective black, according to Bonilla Silva, and with the least privilege in that order. So, what does this mean for you in your leadership journey? It means that if this is true, if this hierarchy is true, that means that power and privilege will play out in different ways according to where these people fall in the hierarchy. Do I see a hierarchy in our country? I do. Do I see it play out in multitudes of ways? I do. Do I think that this might be spot on? Maybe, even though there may be some differentiation. This was back in 2006 that he wrote this, or created this, or published this hierarchy. I won't say he created it. He may have created it in 2020. I mean, 2000. But, that's just when it got published in 2006 in this book. But I do think there's a hierarchy. And because of that, there are certain assumptions that people have just because of other people's race. And once again, the power play comes in different ways. So then there's expectation that the highest amount of privilege would be to whites. And if we want to break it down further, it's probably white males at the top of that list. And then you have your reservation-bound Native Americans all the way down here. And so the way power and privilege may play out in your area of leadership is that these people up here are assuming that they have a certain level of privilege and power. These people down here feel like they are fighting for a certain level of privilege and power. And so they're going to do different things in order to get what they desire or get to where they feel like they should be. Also, if you are the leader and you fall into one of these groups, there are certain people who may make assumptions about you and whether or not they can even follow your leadership simply because of where you fall in the hierarchy. I am a black female. I'm not at the highest of the totem pole. I'm not according to this. And in reality, in my experience, it's very true that I do not fall high on the totem pole. So when I go into spaces, one, to teach leadership, two, to coach people in leadership, three, to educate, there are some people who look at me from the gate and they see this beautiful chocolate skin. They see when my hair is out and natural, they see natural hair. They see something sometimes that they feel like doesn't have as much power and privilege as they do. So who am I to lead them? Who am I to educate them? What? It matters not the experience that I've had. It matters not the education that I have, because I'm not Dr. Renita like for play. Like, I went to school. I got 3 whole degrees. I wrote a beautiful dissertation. I've experienced. I've lived a career. And I'm still going. Just experiences alone allot me the privilege of information and wisdom that a lot of people do not have. Mainly because they're my experiences, which makes me the expert in them. But also, there are just certain people who have not lived through what I've lived through and learned through those experiences the way I have. And so I have something to share. I have something that can help educate others. But there are some people who will look at this and ignore me before I start speaking. There are certain people who will look at other people who are higher on that hierarchy and immediately flock to them and assume that their education and privilege matters enough, or not even be education, their power and privilege matters enough. That means that they know more than I do. They can do more than I do. They can get them places that I cannot get them. And sometimes they are right, because power and privilege has actually played out in the way that this hierarchy has been set up for years. And in some places, it absolutely falls this way. Absolutely. But that's not okay. And the reason why some of these things don't change is because we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to deal with it. We are okay with the status quo. We are afraid of what change could look like. Maybe this would shake up the hierarchy so much that different people would land on the bottom. But the question is why? Why? And the reality is that people have bought into this idea of race and what race means and what race is, and where the power and privilege lies, and don't have enough hope to believe that it could ever change, that they will literally look at you and realize that they're looking in a mirror and shun you because they're shunning themselves because of their experience and what they haven't had. So they would rather go and attach themselves to something higher on the hierarchy, so it gives them the opportunity, or at least in their mind they think it does, to be greater. To be greater. So then we have all of this going on. And then within that, we have cultural things going on. So we have different people with different labels, whether they're by choice or by birth. All of that could be argued. But some things are by choice. The way people choose to present themselves, the way that people choose to carry themselves, and then different orientations that people have. That all comes into play, in addition to this other hierarchy, this racial hierarchy. Then you have these other things that affect the people within this hierarchy. And then the people who have those effects start to believe that they can understand, because of their experience, that they can then also speak to the experience of the people in the other parts of the hierarchy. While there may be some similarities, due to the long-standing history of race in this country, it will be very hard for you to say, if you're not a part of one of those bottom groups, that you really can speak to their experience, because your experience is nothing like theirs. Lots of times, those things, we could change the way we choose to present ourselves. We could choose to hide some of the things that we do that other people may not notice, unless we decide to go ahead and be proud with it. But there are certain things that some people can't hide. I can't hide this. I can't hide it. It's nothing that I can do to hide it. I can try to bleach it, but then even my characteristics will still be what they are. I can get plastic surgery, but if I ever birthed a child, it would look the way it looked, and people would understand, oh, hold up, there's some funny business here, or some genes that wretched around from somewhere. Race is it's not something I can hide. My color is not something I can hide, and because of my color, people assume my race. I can't hide it, and so I have to deal with it. I have to first find pride in who I am, not because of my race, but because of my color. I am proud of my culture. And then, you know what? If you've not noticed, a lot of people have taken this race, like you that's what you say I am? Okay, great. I'm going to take pride in that too. And I will not allow you to make it something that holds me down. I will not allow you to make it something that tells me I cannot. But that was not always, because we are in a new time. The 1960s weren't that long ago. Brown versus Board of Education wasn't that long ago. I have parents who lived when they integrated schools. I have a godmother who integrated a school in her first grade year. She integrated a school. She was like a couple blocks over from where Ruby Bridges was in New Orleans. She integrated a school. They're not old and decrepit and falling apart. They are feisty and doing all the things. This wasn't that long ago. Just in this country, what racism is real. And so let us not act like it's not. We got to deal with it. And as leaders, choose this day who you will serve. Are you going to be a part of the past and keeping things the way they are because you're afraid of what it might mean for the future if you don't? Or are you going to be a person who is an agent for change? Where and how are you leading? Where and how are you leading? But let's not hide from it. Let's not hide from it. I'm not saying that you need to do a declaration on all the social media saying, I stand for this, but let your actions be who you are. Let your life be the sermon, honey. Let your actions show who you are. I have become a person who is very much like the state of Missouri. You got to show me. I don't care what you say. Words don't carry as much, especially in this realm. Because something else that I have learned over my time of life is that everybody who falls into my same color group and racial group, even if you're not this hue, honey, if you're close to it, even if I feel like you might be in my cultural group, which I could be wrong, I have learned that all skin folk ain't kin folk. It's just not what it is. It's truth, and that's okay. I would rather know. I would rather know. As leaders, we have to determine where we stand and stand there. And or let that be our point from where we start to walk. I won't say stand there because that sounds very stuck and stagnant and possibly complacent. Let that be your starting point from where you walk. But you got to have a sure foundation. What do you stand on? And figure out if that thing is rocky or not. But in this racism thing, or this idea of race, not racism, but this idea of race, understand where you are. Decide what you believe. Do some questioning of yourself and decide if you even like that. Maybe it's not even something that you believe anymore. But open your eyes to yourself and your thoughts so that you can really understand how you're interacting with others. Because I'm going to tell you, the idea of race, power, and privilege all wrapped together does affect the way you see the people around you. It does affect the way that you see people in your fellowship. It does even affect the way you see people who you choose to follow. But you got to be real with it and figure out if it was the racial lens that affected even who those people are, and then really extract who they really are. Don't let race run you. You run with race. Understand what it is, accept the things that have affected it. Be real about the fact that the past is not erased because the past is directly affecting the present. Though we shouldn't live in it, we have to be honest about it so that we can move effectively forward in the way that we need to in order to get to the places where we need to go or could go. The future could be bright for us all. At least it could be guided in a way where we weren't so hindered. But race is real. Race is real. It was literally constructed to do the things that it's doing today. It cannot be destructed if we don't acknowledge it, if we're not aware of it, if we don't deal with it. We can run with race so that we can run the race. Sometimes that race for some of us will be totally dismantling a system that has oppressed many people. That hierarchy is real. It came from a person who just experiencing and seeing. Maybe your hierarchy doesn't look the same way, but I bet there is one. I bet there is one. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge it so that you can truly deal, so that you can lead in difference in a positive way, and that you can be the proactive, productive, positive, and amazing leader that you can be, so that you can show up authentically as who you are and not be ashamed of it, so that you can empower others in the way that they need to be empowered. And I don't mean just pull people up and try to shut people down. That's not what it is. It'll help you understand where they're coming from. It may even help you understand how to pull them up, how to move them forward, how to give them the empowerment they need. And then at the end of the day, you will have a greater impact on the world because you opened your eyes to what is really there and why it's there. And then you did the thing about it. You did that thing, whatever that thing is, you did that. So running with race, leading in difference, huge, huge topic. This is just skimming the surface of it. But it's hopefully something that has made you think even about how you see and feel and walk and talk in your leadership journey. I love you. I'll be back here next week, I think, with a guest. We'll see. If not, we definitely have a May guest. So just be ready for all the things. Next week, here on Leadership Live, Monday at 9 p.m. Know that I love you and keep your leadership all the way live. See you next week. Bye.